Hello, everyone. I wanted to do a video today about all of these pardons that are happening, well, that are in the news because the president has just pardoned a couple of people. And is there a possibility he could pardon P. Diddy if Diddy is convicted? So you may have seen the video that just came out. It was Donald Trump in the Oval Office with Elon Musk, and he was asked about this. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Once in 2012 that back when you hosted The Apprentice, you mentioned once in 2012 that Diddy was a good friend of yours back then. He has since found himself in some very serious legal trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years. He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, he sort of that relationship busted up. From what I read, I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. You know, it's different. You become a much different person when you run for politics and you do what's right. I could do other things, and I'm sure he'd like me, and I'm sure other people would like me, but it wouldn't be as good for our country. As we said, our country's doing really well because of what we're doing. So I can't. It's not a popularity contest. So I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated. Whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact on me.
So I hear a lot of reports, or I'm reading a lot of reports that are saying that Donald Trump is considering pardoning Diddy, but I don't hear that when I watch this clip. He said that, he gave the very politically correct answer, which I think wasn't a bad answer. He did admit to knowing Diddy. They obviously are in the same city, I believe, in New York. It seems like a kind of similar circles. There's a ton of pictures of Trump at P. Diddy's parties. This is just one of them, but if you just Google them together, there's a ton of them. And Diddy, like Trump said, they haven't spoken because Trump, if he's telling the truth, once he became president, Diddy distanced himself. But I wanted to kind of speak on the odds of this happening. So P. Diddy hasn't been convicted yet, right? He's currently on trial. I'm not sure if you think he's guilty. It feels like the internet is super divided still, but if he was pardoned, I was doing some research, and that would take away any federal charges against him. But the state of New York could actually follow up with the case, and pardoning doesn't cover charges brought on by the state. So when I said I did research, I meant I looked it up on ChatGPT, okay? And I asked ChatGPT, what was the odds that this could happen? And basically, well, there's a 20% chance, according to ChatGPT. I'm not really sure why or where this number came from. I can ask it, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to try and keep this video a little bit not too long. I don't want to say short because I don't know how long this is going to go, but basically, in terms of odds, it says if he was pardoned, likelihood of jail time after being convicted federally would be 0%. However, if New York filed up their own charges, it would go from 20 to 40% that he would actually serve time in jail. But if he wins a conviction, or I'm sorry, if New York wins a conviction, they would really get him in the sentencing, but most likely the prison time would only be 20 to 30% because of his the money he has, the financial backing he has. He I don't know what you think about his legal team, but you know, his legal team, they know that there's a mountain of evidence against him, but I was watching Two Angry Men today, the TMZ podcast with Harvey Levin and Mark Garagos. And here's a picture of him right here with ASAP Rocky, which he won the case, obviously got ASAP Rocky off. Joe Tacopina, who really said that defense lawyers are very much needed to defend people that aren't so upstanding citizens, right? He said defense lawyers, they're doing the work that no one wants to do, but it has to be done because of pure simple justice. Everyone deserves their fair representation. But he was saying he doesn't understand why these are RICO charges and not just domestic violence charges. He said if they were just brought on like domestic violence, then for sure Diddy would be guilty. And he said that's why they keep showing the video of Cassie in the hotel. So it was a good episode. I liked it. So it was again the Harvey Levin podcast with Mark Garagos, who is acting as an advisor on Diddy's legal defense team right now, which is a little weird. But sources say that Mark Garagos isn't an official lawyer of the team, although he sits in the court alongside Diddy's official lawyers. However, Mark Garagos's daughter is officially part of Diddy's team. Here she is right here. And they were saying on the podcast today that she's actually pregnant. She's 4 months pregnant. So they even made a joke that they should ask if they're wondering if the jurors are thinking to themselves, is everyone involved in this case pregnant? I mean, it's only 2 people, but that's quite the coincidence, and it could garner some sort of sympathy or a little bit of empathy in Diddy's favor. The other thing that they said on the podcast, Joe, ASAP Rocky's defense lawyer, is that the New York jurors are, very unique. They are very not really sympathetic to people, and they really do make their own judgments. And he feels that the text messages of Cassie really telling Diddy after he R-worded her, sorry, that sounds so dumb, but I don't mean to laugh at that, but I'm just laughing at the word that I can't say, that Cassie came back for more. And she actually said that, I guess it was the best night of her life or one of the best nights of her life. I don't know. That's what he said. I don't remember her saying that, allegedly. But, and Mark did defend her on the podcast, Mark Garagos, and, and so did Harvey Levin, and brought up the point of Stockholm syndrome. But, and even Joe, ASAP Rocky's lawyer, did say that he doesn't know how he would react if he were in that same situation. And I don't think he could even fathom, because he's a male. And I hate to say that, but women, unfortunately, are more often put, in my opinion, in those positions more so than men. So, but he thinks it's very odd that she still continued to send him some loving texts, seemingly. So it's a little bit conflicting, and he feels that the defense is, has kind of really brought that to light. But let's watch a little clip of that podcast.
You have a president now who is very attuned to the criminal justice system. Once you've been accused, you don't come back from that unscathed. Joe will tell you. How many clients have you had, Joe, who in the middle of a trial or after the trial, even when they're acquitted, turn to you and say, how the hell do you do this for a living? It is the worst thing, right?
Especially when those clients are law and order people who think that everyone accused is guilty, right?
Exactly.
Until it's them. And, that's why I say to them, I say, that's why it's important to do what we do. It's really is, Harvey. I mean, we're no good for the Nancy Grace of the world, but without us, the system collapses and breaks.
I agree.
And to me, it's a badge of honor and integrity for a criminal defense lawyer to represent the least popular, the most despised individual in this country. It really is, because it takes courage, it takes integrity, and it takes real chutzpah, so to speak, to do that, because it's important, but it keeps the system honest. Look, every time people talk to me about how can you represent someone like that, I cite Richard Jewell. That's just one of hundreds of examples.
Yeah.
But Richard Jewell's a great one, because that guy was so presumed guilty, it wasn't even funny.
Well, that was the media's fault.
A trick of ice, water, salt, and lemon has gone viral in the.
So one thing I had asked ChatGPT is, would the state of New York, should it get even that far? Should, Diddy actually become convicted and then Donald Trump steps in, pardons him? I think that Donald Trump, it's not out of the question he would do that. It seems like such a crazy concept to think that our president would do that. But honestly, he just let go a ton of people. There's a whole laundry list of people that he just granted clemency to. Whether they deserved it or not, that's not for me to judge. But, he didn't deny, and I know he knows what's going on. It's going on right under his nose. He's literally in the same city this is happening. There's no way he can avoid or not hear everything that's happening with P. Diddy right now. So he did play dumb. He did act like, well, if the government did him wrong, then, he may deserve it. Or he may deserve being pardoned. So it's definitely not out of the question that could happen. So I was wondering, will the state of New York need to actually find new evidence if they decided that they had to try this case again under the state of New York rather than the United States federal courts? But ChatGPT did say that they could reuse a lot of the evidence, which, I feel is a good, that's, to me, is not as, I mean, I don't know whose side you're on, if you're on Diddy's side or not, but to me, I feel that he should be brought to some sort of consequences for a lot of the things that he's done, and a lot of the things that he has not even been charged for, but is responsible for. I had thought that Albie Shure, Kim Porter's father of her son, Quincy, I believe is his name, he's dropping a book in September. And let me see if I can look up that book. So here's the book right here. Do You Believe Me Now? I was hoping we would get like a preview snippet of what's inside, but doesn't look like we can. But there is a little bit of, I guess this is a synopsis. So about the book, Grammy-nominated R&B legend Albie Shure tells all in this inspiring survivor's memoir that reveals the untold story of his near-death health emergency, shocking ties to Sean Combs, romance with the late Kim Porter, and the extraordinary highs and life-threatening lows of being a pioneering New Jack Swing superstar. Days after Homeland Security raided Sean Combs' compounds in a federal sex trafficking investigation, the multi-platinum R&B legend Albie Shure declared that when people heard how he wound up in a coma 2 years earlier, they were really they were really going to need to call Homeland Security. Did he write this himself? Because this is like a little bit not of an easy read. Who proofread this? Maybe it's me. Let me know. The connections run deep. So this book is really focused on a lot of the situation between obviously the mother of his child, who he loved dearly. She seemed like an amazing woman. She was very loved by everyone. It seems like that was around her, including Albie Shure. So the connections run deep. Albie Shure's ex-wife Kim Porter became Combs' longtime girlfriend and mother to 3 of his children before her mysterious 2018 death. Albie Shure and Kim's son Quincy Brown's open letter praising Combs as a father figure sparked a media frenzy, as did Albie Shure's call for an investigation into Porter's death. Yeah, so I think they butted heads, Quincy and Albie Shure. You know, I'm not quite sure how Diddy adopted Albie Shure's son. Does that relinquish all rights as a father, biological father, from Albie Shure to P. Diddy? Why did that go down? Not sure. If you know why, let me know. So it continues. For years, Albie Shure had been ringing the alarm to law enforcement officials about alleged gang stalking, surveillance, death threats, human trafficking, gaslighting, and psychological warfare against him and others in his orbit. People called him crazy. Now back from the brink of death, he reclaims his power and truth in this incredible memoir about finding inner peace despite countless attempts to break him. Okay, so it's like he's talking about Diddy, but not really explicitly putting Diddy's name in that paragraph. But it's highly insinuated, right? That he's talking about P. Diddy. And it's kind of interesting that he's dropping this book in September. It's going to come out right after the trial is over. I don't think Albie Shure is going to take the stand. He did say on I think it was like a Good Morning America interview, that he was subpoenaed. But there are reports online that say that anyone that's been subpoenaed has been forbidden from talking in the media. So therefore, that would mean him going on air on a national TV show and saying that he was subpoenaed would cancel out the chances that he would go on the stand, because if he was going to testify, he's not supposed to be in the media. So I was hoping he would testify, but it doesn't look like he will. It doesn't look like he is going to be a part of the trial. This remarkable story transcends Albie's health crisis. It chronicles his journey from the tough streets of money-earning Mount Vernon to New Jack Swing stardom, as well as his influential role as the first platinum-selling artist and the first artist to reach #1 on Billboard's R&B charts at Uptown Records, where Combs got his start in the industry as an intern. But of the small group of key figures who were there at Uptown's founding, Shure is one of the few still living to tell the story. So, are you going to pick up the book? So that brings up some people that have been victimized by being in the circles of P. Diddy. And if the state of New York decided to retry these or bring about new charges, if P. Diddy walks away not actually getting punished from the federal case, the chances of the victims having to maybe go on the stand again would really diminish so much of the work that's happening right now in the case. It's a lot, right? It's a lot. And who wants to go through that all over again? So the federal prosecution is coming hard. They're throwing everything they have right now. If Donald Trump just comes and wipes all that away, that would be a travesty, in my opinion. Plus, you know, if Diddy's out and about, or I'm not even sure how that would work. If he got clemency or pardoned, what is he allowed to be out amongst, you know, back at home? And would his, you know, what he's known for as far as harassing people, witnesses, they say that he has done that to some of the people that were supposed to testify. One of them, I think, witness number 3 is didn't they can't get a hold of them. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but there was one witness in particular that just stopped responding when they were supposed to testify, and they believe it's because, or allegedly, it's because P. Diddy was able to contact them and possibly, you know, maybe bribe them. So if P. Diddy was allowed to be released, but then facing new charges, if he's out amongst back to his old environment, who's to say what he would do to any witnesses that were going to be called into a new case? And then the other thing is his defense team would really probably go in on the old testimony, and if any of the witnesses decided to go ahead and show up in the new case, the defense is going to try and poke as many holes as any inconsistencies that they find. So they would really hammer in on all of the witnesses' credibility, because they would have time to prepare, and they already see what's out on the table. So now they would have even more time to try and tear that down. So a new case in a new court by the state of New York would really not be a solid case as much as it is now. So if Trump pardons, you know, Diddy's charges, ChatGPT says it's not a get out of free jail card, you know, but it would definitely be another fight, and the percentage of him actually being convicted is drastically lowered. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think he's gonna get pardoned? Do you think he deserves jail time? Do you think if he gets out, he could buy his way out of actually serving any sort of jail time? Let me know in the comments. I hope you guys like this video, and I'll see you on the next one.